Yesterday, we spoke about the ignorant cry of living things, in response to which the Divine Mother plunges herself as the mythical phoenix bird in a deep and great love for her children. As Aurobindo would tell us, in her deep and great love for her children, she has consented to wear the mask of obscurity, to bear the torturing, the attacks and the torturing influences of falsehood and darkness, born to pass through the portals of birth, that is a death, and taken upon herself the pang and suffering and sorrow of creation. For it seemed that thus alone can it be raised to light and truth and joy and eternal life. This is the great Holocaust, the sacrifice of the Divine Mother for her creation. And this comes in response to the cry of ignorant things. It's a beautiful line in Savitri, in the very first canto. We hear only our own cries, but this cry is there in matter, in the hum of matter. Mute matter contains this cry, as it were. This cry is there in the heart of life. This cry makes the bud open to the light of the sun and turns into a flower. This cry is there in dumb, four-footed things. This cry is there in the hiss of the snake, in the whirling of the globes, in the patterns of life. This cry is there in the cry of love and the cry of hate, in the pain of death, in the joy of life. There is this cry. This cry in human nature takes the form of aspiration towards light, towards God, towards freedom, towards immortality. In one of the beautiful passages in Savitri, this cry which is there in the heart of things is very beautifully rendered. We see this in Aurobindo's symbol. We have matter aspiring through light, life and love. This cry becoming conscious. Page 200. Or rather we can go a page backward, page 199, 199, almost towards the middle. I've been asked to go slow, so I'm keeping slow. As one who lost the kingdom of his soul, we look back to some God phase of our birth, other than this imperfect creature here, and hope in this or a diviner world, to recover yet from heaven's patient guard what by our mind's forgetfulness we miss. What is it that we miss and long for? What is it that we cry for deep inside? What is it that cries through our pain? Our pain itself is a cry. Our darkness is a cry. What is it that we miss most? Our being's natural felicity. Our heart's delight we have exchanged for grief. The body's thrill we bartered for mere pain. The bliss for which our mortal nature yearns, as yearns an obscure moth to blazing light. To perish in that light, to become one with that light. The moth yearns. Something in us yearns, something in the very depths of life. Our life is a march to a victory never won. This wave of being longing for delight. This eager turmoil of unsatisfied strengths. These long, far files of forward striving hopes lift worshipping eyes to the blue void called heaven, looking for the golden hand that never came. This is the deep pathos in creation, that we constantly seek for divinization of this clay, the advent for which all creation waits, the beautiful visage of eternity that shall appear upon the roads of time. Yet, still to ourselves we say, rekindling faith. There is a faith within us. Even though centuries, millenniums pass, and as Aurobindo would tell us, we only hear the feet of passing gods. And we see their dust, and the chariot has gone. And there are those who say that this dust is not dust and storm, but the hooves of gods who have trailed through this road. And our eyes behold him not. We see but dust and footprints on the tracks of time, covered by dust. Yet the faith once again cries, "Oh, surely one day he shall come to our cry. One day he shall create our life anew and utter the magic formula of peace and bring perfection to the scheme of things. One day he shall descend to life and earth." The divine descends, but he has to go back. This is the greatest tragedy of life. More than that, there can be no other tragedy. That the divine, who is omnipotent, who is all full of love, all full of ananda, we long to feel him, to see him, to clasp him, the embodied divine. And he comes for a while and leaves behind once again faith and hope and cry and a longing. As Aurobindo would tell us that 4 great events in the history of mankind, and 2 of them, the crucifixion of Christ and Krishna's exile from Vrindavan. And what they do? Crucifixion of Christ, it humanized Europe. It transformed something. And yet, he departs from mortal flesh and blood. And there is Krishna's exile from Vrindavan. Before that, there is Jnana, beautiful lines in Upanishads and Vedas, full of, as if a mighty, large, wide Brahmaputra was pouring through the mouths of the rishis. But where is that love? And when Krishna departs, something he leaves behind as an imprint upon earth. The love that longs through the songs of the gopis, the love that flows through the eyes of Radha, the love that is born on the lips of Meera, and many, many other saints and sages, the love and the longing for the embodied divine. One day he shall descend to life and earth, leaving the secrecy of the eternal doors into a world that cries to him for help, and bring the truth that sets the spirit free. The joy that is the baptism of the soul. We don't need anyone outside to initiate us or baptize us or convert us. When the soul awakens, it experiences the joy and the peace and love. And that is true baptization. The day we feel that, even for a moment, as the mother would tell us, even for a moment, fleetingly, if we have experienced that, it is a sign that we are finished. We are marked out for the spiritual life. We don't need someone else to tell us that, well, you are on the path or you are not on the path. We don't have to wait for someone to give us a secret mantra. The mantra will spring up. And of all mantras, this is the best, to feel love and yearning for the divine. Mantra is born out of that love and longing. The day, even for a moment, we experience it, all our lives are finished, they are gone. We can be sure that again and again, this flame and fire will grow, the cry will grow, the longing will grow, and one day surely the joy that is the baptism of the soul, the strength that is the outstretched arm of love. Now we have strength which is derived from hate, opposition, the strength of darkness. What we seek is a strength that is the arm of love. One day he shall lift his beauty's dreadful veil, the veil of death which he wears and moves upon earth, the veil of obscurity, even the veil of suffering that the divine wears and moves. One day he shall lift his beauty's dreadful veil. And what we shall find when this veil is lifted? Impose delight on the world's beating heart, and bear his secret body of light and bliss. But now we strain to reach an unknown goal. There is no end of seeking and of birth. There is no end of dying and return. The life that wins its aim asks greater aims. The life that fails and dies must live again. Another place we read previously, the soul is condemned to pain. Man is condemned to pain till his soul is free. This is even in death there is no repose. No tranquilizers can give us peace. Death is not an escape. It is not a closed door. Even doom is a passage, not a closed wall. The life that fails and dies must live again till it has founded itself. It cannot cease. All must be done for which life and death were made. But who shall say that even then is rest? This is the ignorant cry in living things. This is the ignorant cry that man carries in his heart. And this, if we go to the bottom of everything, is the real issue. The issue is the birth of human soul amidst the enigma of the night. In fact, the issue is creation itself. A creation which has been created apparently out of the very substance of God. It has been created out of delight, and yet it suffers and struggles and swings between pleasure, pain, or indifference. A creation which is created out of deep love, and yet what we find here is hatred, divisions, deep clefts. So much so that within the same house, human beings won't live in peace. This is the kind of knot which is tied to enigmas, not tied to humankind. We love God, but we can't love man. This is the strange enigma. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorisms, who is he in love with then? We cannot love this creation and yet we claim to love God. This creation that jumps out of power and consciousness is so unconscious, so unaware. We move as if from one degree of unconsciousness to another level of unconsciousness, from one blindness to another blindness. Here where one knows not even the step in front. This is the kind of creation, surrounded by night, as if we are imprisoned. And yet who are we? We are Satyavan, the upholders of light, of truth, of bliss. This is the enigma. Again, we see in the issue, the second canto on which we have paused. This issue is very beautifully described. Page 18. In this enigma of the dusk of God. In this enigma of the dusk of God. It's a meeting point of light and darkness. That is the dusk of God. Light comes and is returning, and night is creeping in this enigma of the dusk of God. This slow and strange, uneasy compromise of limiting nature with a limitless soul. In Mahabharata, we have this well-known story when Yaksha asks questions to everyone, and finally to Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira replies all the questions. At the end he is asked, tell me Yudhishthira, what is it that is the most amazing, most surprising thing? Actually the word Ashcharya cannot really be translated. Kim Ashcharyam. It's not actually surprise. It's not exactly wonder. It is something like a mix of wonder and surprise. What is it that is so strange? And he says, every day men see their fellows die, but they live as if they are immortal beings. This story is often interpreted in a negative way. The Mayavadin interprets it by saying that yes, we must remember that one day we all will die. But the Leelavadin would interpret it differently. He would say, we believe we are not going to die because something in us is conscious, however vaguely, of its immortality. That's why we seek it instinctively. That's why we seek instinctively the bliss. And one day, this immortality, seeking for immortality, is not only for the soul, but also for the body. It's very interesting. There is this story of Sphinx, which can be really, some of these stories are so direct and hit us so hard. The story is that there is this Theban desert through which everybody crosses, much like the desert of life, and on the road the Sphinx waits. It is the guardian of the way, and it asks to everyone who crosses, who tell me a puzzle. If you can give me the answer to this riddle, I will set you free, you can pass. If you don't, then I'll eat you up. The riddle is very simple. He asks, the Sphinx asks, and many won't answer, till Oedipus Rex, the great hero, is going one day through the path, and the Sphinx asks Oedipus the same question. Who is this creature who walks on 4 feet in the morning, on 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night? So Oedipus says, I am the answer. As a child I walk on 4, as a grown-up I walk on 2, as an adult, as an old person I walk on 3. Of course, many of us, even as old persons or as child or as adult, walk on 4, that is the cars. So now probably we have to change the answer. So we don't know the joy of walking. So, but those were days when probably this was not there. That's why they had to cross the desert. Now we'll take an aircraft and Sphinx will meet us somewhere in another aircraft or at the visa station and ask us the same question. But Oedipus says, I am the answer. Sphinx dies. It throws itself into the fire and finishes itself, and Oedipus passes. The story is interpreted, of course it's a symbolic story, but it's interpreted usually as that he who has the knowledge of the self is allowed to pass. True, but the story is still more direct. Oedipus is not referring just to the knowledge of the self. He is also referring to his body. He is also referring to his physical state. And Oedipus says, when he says, I am the answer, who walks on 4 feet? It is the self who walks on 4 feet. Who walks on 2 feet? It is the self who walks as an adult. Who crouches and bends and walks by my side? Not an old man. As we read the other day, the deepest Vedanta, it is the self who walks bent with a stick in his hand. And when we see all things as the self, we are already on the path to an integral immortality. Because that is the most direct answer. Otherwise, Oedipus could have said, well, the answer is not that which perishes or some other answer. But he says that which walks. I am the answer. I am the one who is all these things. So this is the paradox of limitless soul which comes in a limited nature. That's why it is said that man's is a double birth. His first birth is through his physical parentage. It is a birth in matter. It is a birth in the body. And his physical parents look after him. And then, by spiritual conversion, what is in spiritual paths and in sects and of course in religion tradition is unfortunately turned into an external ritual, but it is by a birth into his soul that he becomes truly baptized. That is the second birth that he longs for. In the Indian tradition, such a person was called a Dvij, the twice born. One who is born into the body, into this stuff of clay and matter and mud. The second, he was born into the spirit. Now, so long as he is only born into the mud, as a creature of clay and mud, there is no problem. There are problems, of course, but problems are not so serious. He knows himself to be mud. He thinks himself to be mud. He lives as if he is a creature of mud. Something in him vaguely stirs. But he is, after all, as we have in the parable of the seagulls, a low-winged bird meant to fly low on the surfaces of the sea and not to soar high. And if one of his kind dares to do that, he says, come back, you creature of the mud. Come back. Clip your wings. Be practical. You are a fool. Don't listen to all these people who say such things. Don't read Aurobindo's books. Don't go to Pondicherry. You may not come back. Be practical minded. These are the creatures of the mud who constantly, as long as you are a creature of the mud, there is very little conflict within us. There is conflict outside us. One muddy being fights with another muddy being till dust unto dust and under dust to lie. Sans wine, sans song, sans singer, sans end. This is how Omar Khayyam would portray this. But the day we are twice born, then the conflict is not outside. The conflict is within us. Two genii live in the heart of man. Then the problem comes. On one side, we feel the pressure of the limitless soul, seeking for truth and light and bliss. On the other side, we feel the prison of this mud house, the constant opposition, not from outside, but from our own nature, the denials, the doubts, the discouragements, the voices of the night. It's a marvel. In man, the inconscient assumes a voice, and in man, the superconscient also whispers into his soul. The titans and the gods wrestle for our souls as for a costly prize. That is how Aurobindo would tell one of the places in Savitri. So here we have this slow and strange, uneasy compromise. So we have to adopt a compromised formula, like the government. We have a uneasy alliance. Some very fine ministers have to come together with the most unruly ministers, and there is a speaker who never speaks, like the soul within us, and there is a president who sits above, hidden in his palace, who has to indifferently sign whatever is sent to him. He has to even speak out the voice of the majority. This is our state, a strange and uneasy compromise. The speaker is the soul who simply witnesses the scene. Once in a while lifts a hammer here and says unparliamentary, edit these remarks. And the president is the veiled king. Once in a while he comes out in his chariot in one of those beautiful moments, and we say hail to thee, but he is ineffective. So here we have this slow and strange uneasy compromise of limiting nature with a limitless soul, where all must move between an ordered chance and an uncaring blind necessity. Too high the fire spiritual dare not blaze. Why? This is the problem. Why doesn't God make it so easy that you have an aspiration and next day you have the darshan of the divine? So beautiful it would be. Why this ages and centuries and aeons? Sanat Kumar did this. And what happened? They turned away from creation and went back into Brahma and said, let us pass beyond the word into the silence. When spiritual fire blazes like that, this is what happens. So even this serves a purpose. It wants, it has called it here for a particular work. So it says, too high the fire spiritual dare not blaze. If once it met the intense original flame, an answering touch might shatter all measures made. Even now, the divine advent shatters the measures. At one of the places when someone asked, why doesn't the divine just go? Inconscient darkness is there, he is all omnipotent light. He should just go and finish the inconscience in one go. What is there? What is this complicated drama? And then Aurobindo says in one of the places, you cannot destroy darkness unless you destroy much that is fed by that darkness. To destroy that darkness would mean all of us would go to blazes. That moment the creation would go to blazes. Because don't we carry something of that darkness within us? Perhaps we carry only something of the light and much more that is dark. Just because we feel a moment of aspiration doesn't mean we are free. So if the divine were to do that, annihilate, well, creation would not be, there would be only light and no creation. Nothing that can sustain, no multiplicity. Everything will be dissolved immediately. Later on, the same thing is echoed much later when Savitri asks for that light to come down. And he says, earth might sink. In fact, initially Ashwapati, when he asks, when he says, come down, O light, O splendor. So he hears the voice who says, O son of strength, No, that comes later. Before that, the voice warns him. It tells him, what thou hast won is thine, but ask no more. Alone thou standest at the eternal doors. And it knows he is asking for man. So he says, man is too weak to bear the infinite's weight. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. This is the problem. If the problem was only to set the soul free, then all this drama is not required. There are very fine paths already made for thousands of years. Aurobindo says in one of his letters, then I had no need to waste all these years striving and struggling. There are already many paths which have been made, macadamized, stamped, sealed. Soul has to be free from this mud stuff. Very nice. Start singing Hari Bol, and start adoring, and you are out. A time comes when you pass through a small little hole out of this mud house, and you say, I want to be in that status with the divine, I don't come back. Or torture your flesh and body as the asuras do, till the soul is so horrified, mortified, that it escapes. It says, my God, I can't stay in this. Or else simply focus your mind on one idea. I am that, I am that, I am that. What is this? Not this, not this, not this. Till one day, something like a small little point escapes from us and blends and merges into that blazing light. These are paths already made. What is Aurobindo hoping for? I keep my hope and will to divinize clay. This is the issue. Till that happens, there cannot be life divine. And this is the great yagna which is going on right from the time creation began. It's a big mistake to believe that man does yoga. Man can do actually nothing. He does not even know how to rightfully enjoy. Yoga is a very big word. Man can do only Saha Yoga. Divine does yoga. And divine is doing yoga right from the time creation has been made. And what is this yoga? He is creating consciousness out of inconscience. And he is creating forms that are sentient out of unconsciousness. Half-conscious forms, subconscious forms, seeking forms, thinking forms, feeling forms, forms that desire. That's what he is creating. And millions of years this great yoga is going on. But there is a role for man. Man reaches a point where he can turn this subconscious yoga into a conscious yoga. That man can do. He can hopefully collaborate in this great work. Not that anything depends on man, except perhaps the time. When mother was asked, do things depend on man? What would she say? Out of dust or out of that darkness, that power which has created man, does it depend on man to go beyond? It doesn't depend on man. But man can collaborate and share the joy of the victory. This is given to man. Share the joy of the struggle. Share the joy of service, the joy of surrender, the joy of participating in a most beautiful, unprecedented venture ever given to man. If ever there was a task and work, this is the work. In the Life Divine, so beautifully says, this is the work of works, the sole acceptable sacrifice. We all sacrifice. And we make big bones about a sacrifice. Oh, he's such a great Karma Yogin. What did he do? He sacrificed himself for his family. Even dogs and cats do it to the extent they can. Perhaps they do it without using such wonderful words. They don't give speeches, as the mother would say. Flower sacrifice. Freely they give their fragrance to everything around, and they don't like their names to be printed. I, that flower, born on so and so date, perished on so and so date, gave myself to the sun and all human beings around. Please remember me and put this on my epitaph, as an epitaph when I fall. They sacrifice and they fall. All nature is sacrificing to the one Lord, and the sacrificant is He. All is a consecration and a rite. Air was a vibrant link between earth and heavens. The high boughs prayed in a revealing sky. Everywhere this is going on. But the true sacrifice, the work of works, the sole acceptable sacrifice, worthy of man, what is that? The ascent to the divine life, for which he should not even look back and think it is a sacrifice, because actually it is not. It's an ascent to the divine life. The sole acceptable sacrifice, without which he is nothing but a worm that has managed to form itself in a little speck of mud and water amidst the appalling immensities of the universe. What differentiates us from all other creatures is that we can make a conscious ascent, and we can become the mediating link for the divine to enter and annihilate that darkness which has assumed voice and forms within us. So it becomes easier. And within man, this is possible because he is a depot of contraries. An answering touch might shatter all measures made. Another place, Mother says, men have upset the balance of animal world, and supermen have upset the measures and balance of men. Because they come and they are so free. That's why in India, the sannyasi was told, please stay away from the town limits. Don't enter this municipal area, and certainly not in jeans and kurta. Wear your ochre robe so that everybody knows this is not the ideal to be followed. This is only to be worshipped. Because if men were not and only were gods, then what would happen? There would be no measures at all. We want to live in our measures. Your freedom is too dangerous. Come to our house, say Bhiksham Dehi, we'll give you something to eat, we'll put you on a respectable pedestal, we'll wash your feet, offer you incense and flowers and food. But don't ask like Buddha, oh child, would you like to come along with me? Don't ask that. Our child must stay indoors. You are a very nice person. Very fine. Take it. Your satsang 1 hour is very welcome. But then please go your way. Your place is outside the bounds of the city limits. So divine has changed the plan. He has changed the children. Now children are teaching the sannyasis how to be truly a sannyasi. So he changed the plan. He is entering a stealth of God. Like a stealth of God, he is entering every house. So this is how the measures of earth. But these measures had a meaning. They had a purpose. They were also created by the meeting of that light and the inconscient. Because earth was not ready for something greater. So these were the measures. Now a greater light comes and it may just shatter these measures. Is man ready for that? An answering touch might shatter all measures made, and earth sink down with the weight of the infinite. So we read, and we are going to see this beautiful program that, Mother took a golden hammer and struck open the door, and the supramental came flooding down, and we are all so happy about it. But she also said something later on, that I expected at least a few must have responded, but everybody was sitting stiff. This is our state, because we are not ready for that touch. So it's not just as simple as that the avatar comes and adds a rung to the creation. He has to prepare the base. What does he say in the God's labor? I had hoped to build a rainbow bridge to marry the earth to the sky, to marry the soil to the sky. and to sow mid this dancing planet midge the moods of infinity. But what happens? But too far our heavens, too frail their ethereal stuff, too long and splendid our light could not stay. Why it could not stay? The roots were not deep enough. So who would go deep enough to prepare the roots? He who would bring the heavens here must descend himself into clay, and the burden of nature and the burden of earthly nature bear, and tread the dolorous way. Coercing my Godhead, I have come down into this sordid earth. In the Gita it's very beautifully mentioned, Prakartim Swam Adhisthaya. Pressing down upon my own Prakriti. It's a different kind of, avatar is a different birth. It is not the way ordinary human birth or a soul evolving and then embodying the divine. It's not at all. He is not a saint. He is not a sage or a yogi or maharishi. All these terms don't apply. Even if the avatar did no miracle, even if he did not display any fireworks, we love to see fireworks. Even if he made no noise and came quietly and went away, he would still be avatar. What does he do? Coercing my Godhead, I have come down into this sordid earth. What he becomes? Ignorant, laboring, human grown, twixt the gates of death and birth. This is the work of the avatar, and this the purpose of the mothers, divine mothers' descent into this darkness, into this jail. That is how she will describe. He will describe it's one and the same. A jail is this immense material world. That is the regard of the soul. Across each road stands armed a stone-eyed law. Try to go anywhere near. Everywhere you will have, even if you want to go to a temple, first the traffic police, then the policeman, then the watchman, then finally the priest. Stone-armed law. You cannot pass beyond this. He will suddenly come between you and God. You are wanting to go inside and you are already, oh, the deity is darshan. Suddenly one man will come, pot-bellied, stretch his hands and say, I am the one. God is hidden behind his face. So we have at every gate the huge, dim sentinel space. Who are these sentinels? The sentinels of doubt, depression, discouragement, guilt. They pace. You want to go through the way of the heart, there they will stop us. You want to go through the way of the mind, there they will stop us. You want to go through the way of the will, there they'll stop us. At every gate, the huge, dim sentinels wait, pace, a great tribunal of the ignorance, an inquisition of the priests of night. Sometimes it's hard to say whether a priest is actually a priest of light interceding on our behalf or a priest of night. In judgment sit on the adventurer soul. The soul wants to go to the Supreme. This great adversary comes and says, go back, thou art not pure enough. Who are you who speaks of heavenly ease? Haven't you done this, that, so many things? You want to go to God? Go wash your feet, wash your hands, take a bath, and then put a scarf over your head, and then take a mala, then maybe I'll allow you this much. It sits on judgment. And these voices it's very practical, it's not philosophy at all. When we begin to move the inward way, so many such voices arise. Where do they come from? Which won't allow us to go, which will say, oh, you know, you are not worthy. Who said you can go inside and meet God? This is too big. Why don't go to a simpler way? There is a way, come, I'll teach you a very simple technique of meditation. That is the right path. And that's very simple. At every gate, the huge dim sentinel space. And they won't allow us to go. In judgment sit on the adventurer's soul, and the dual tables, and the karmic norm. We'll come to this later, maybe after the break. What is this karmic norm? Restrain the titan in us and the God. On one side, it restrains the titan in us out of fear. Though it's very doubtful if any man ever changed out of fear. All that fear does it teaches us how to be false. It's a great teacher of falsehood. That's all. It doesn't really change anyone. It teaches people to be even more cunning. But nevertheless, it restrains sometimes too much of titanic energies from seeking expression. Oh, if you do this, the karmic law. But it also restrains the God in us. You have a duty towards this, that, towards the country, towards parents, and you want to go to God? It restrains in us even the Godward climb, clips it. The karmic tables, karmic norm, pain with its lash, joy with its silver bribe. Guard the wheels, circling immobility.